technological transformation that we are experiencing is, I think, the greatest of our lifetime, and it's certainly the greatest for financial services. But it takes a shape that is fundamentally different than tech cycles that have come before. So if you think about mobile or you think about cloud, the native entrants in those technologies had a clear advantage, right? In mobile, new startups were able to take advantage of geolocation to build on-demand services. In cloud, new entrants could take advantage of the new architecture to build collaborative SaaS products from the ground up. AI is different. With AI, we have certain advantages that accrue to scaled players like data and existing scale of processes. And so the shape of this transformation is going to be pretty different. So when you think about the incumbent, as you mentioned, we did this report with Money 2020 last fall, looking at what are the incumbents saying that they're doing with AI. It's amazing, 76% of them have announced a substantial initiative, and 51% of them are using it in their core customer-facing products. So this is not an era where incumbents are sitting and resting on their laurels, which means that for AI native entrants in fintech in particular, they have to take big swings. They have to invent new categories, they have to innovate on business models, and they have to think about the problems that are being created by AI itself and solve those. Those are the areas where the incumbents are less likely to play and where they can win. I think about it a little more categorically right now. And one of the areas I'm most excited about is around agentic commerce. And this is because I think that we are seeing a true reinvention of the way people are going to shop online. And that is throughout the stack, right? So we recently did a market map on this space. We've coined it A-commerce. And as we think about the areas that we think are most ripe for disruption, there are sort of three high level that come to mind. One are the AI shopping assistants themselves, purpose-built shopping assistants for highly considered purchases like travel, like procurement, even financial decision making. Then you have the e-commerce infrastructure players, right? A new set of players that are going to build the storefronts and the data layer for this agentic shopping experience. And so perhaps Shopify builds the Shopify for agents, but I don't think that they're going to be the ones to own this. I think there are lots of new companies, really early but interesting, like take NuGen, which is a company founded by former Stripes that has started to build the sort of product catalog consumable by agents. And then lastly, most near and dear to my heart, we have agentic payments, right? Every major technological shift has seen major new payments players build, and this one is going to be next level because as we think about the way that transactions happen online, agents are going to help with everything from discovery to the payment itself, taking what used to be a really disaggregated process and unifying it. And so we're seeing a bunch of activity there. And one example of a company I think is interesting is Nakuta, which is basically building intent authorization for transactions. So that gives you a sense of the scope of one of the categories I think is interesting. We talk about this a lot on our team. It's really hard. It's hard as a founder. It's even hard for us as investors when evaluating companies because the moats that won in past generations are not going to win now. You think about things like speed to market. Everybody has it with AI development as it is, right? You think about things like technology moats. I mean, frankly, they still exist in some areas, but at the application layer in particular, everything is easy to replicate. And so basically, we have to think about a new paradigm of what makes companies defensible. And it's really the things that are more human and hard to recreate. So I think about it in four categories. So the first one, brand. When you have a faceless agent, it is so important to invest in brand, build a trusted and resonant brand from day one. And this is not something startups normally do, especially in fintech. They put it off into later years, and that's been fine historically. But right now, you have to figure out a way to build trust and to build the perception of quality, and brand is a big way to do that. So that's number one. Number two, the interaction design or the interaction architecture really matters. And what I mean by this is how does it feel when I'm talking to you as an agent, right? What is the nature of our conversation? Do I trust that you're going to take the right action, that you're going to get input from me in the right moment? That design flow, so that just like Ali, when you and I are getting to know each other, at a certain point, I think, I really trust his intuition. He's going to make good decisions on my behalf. I need to build that same kind of trust with my agents, right? And so that's all about the interaction design. Then I think there's another area, which is building a really tailored expertise feel, right? So maintaining context about me in a way that allows for a richer experience in a narrow domain is super important right now. And then the last one, which is one I think we've been uniquely talking about, is the system of process. So we're all familiar with system of records. They've been a moat widely contemplated as a very secure one as part of past generations. But here, what you really have to own is the process itself, right? The data record of all of the interactions and the metadata around the interactions, such that you as the company have the ability to sort of maintain that ownership of process, because that's the lock-in. So we talked about agentic commerce, obviously, and that's a category of reinvention. It's also a category of new business models. Another one that I think a lot about is fraud, and it's really, using AI to combat fraud and to defend identities. And I think that this is a moment where we're going to see a first really, truly generational company built in this space. And the reason is because when you think about the problems that are created by AI, we're already seeing it so meaningfully when it comes to fraud. There are new deepfakes being used on the internet every 5 minutes. Deepfake fraud is up 700% year over year. This is going to be an all-out arms race, and the incumbents are not suited to solve it because it takes rapid iteration and will probably in perpetuity. And so I just think that this is a huge chance for interesting companies to come in and really use generative AI, whether it's using synthetic data or doing deepfake detection, or even just having much more scalable fraud operations themselves, right? There are a lot of ways to use generative AI to combat the generative AI fraud that we're seeing. You look at Brian Armstrong's video that he put out recently, right? Coinbase has just seen this unprecedented deepfake scam, right? Using voice, and this is going to happen all over. That's a very tech-forward company that wasn't able to get ahead of it. We need new players and new technology to come to the fore to solve this. So here's what I would say. We just talked about a lot of things that are particularly unique to this AI era, and literally, for the best founders, you can throw everything I just said out the window, because all that matters is that we back the best builders, and that will continue to be true. And still, I think that there are a couple things that are pretty unique to this moment in time that we're looking for in the founders that we back. So the first one is, we want to see founders that have a very crisp articulation of what their moat is. And don't get me wrong, this is not because I think that today, a founder sitting here building a company in Amsterdam is going to have a true sense for what their moat's going to be in 5 years. I don't. I certainly don't. None of us do. Things are changing so quickly. But the kind of thinking around corners, the anticipating where their edge is going to be, that I see in some founders is what makes me confident that they're going to be able to navigate this rapidly evolving environment. The other thing I really look for is a balance of both conviction and agility, right? People need to have strong beliefs loosely held. They need to know where they're going and be able to focus and execute rapidly in this extremely competitive environment. And at the same time, they need to be agile enough to adapt as the world around them changes. It's changing so quickly. And so lacking that agility means you'll be dead in the water in 12 months. And so those two things, I think, are paramount right now in the companies that are going to be most successful.